Good afternoon, everyone. We are almost ready to go with today's session. I'm just going to wait for a few more people to join, and then we'll get the session started. Just going to wait for the magic number 100, and then we'll get things started. Emma. Okay. Let's make a start, everyone. So, firstly, a big thank you to everyone for joining today's session, which is the second in a series of 4 that we're running over the next couple of days, which are exploring the 4 key components of the Power Platform, which are Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and also virtual agents. This afternoon's session will be obviously focusing on Power Automate. This morning we ran a session on Power Apps, which will be available on demand shortly to watch, so just make sure you register retrospectively, and tomorrow's sessions on Power BI and virtual agents will also be available on demand. We have got quite a bit of content to cover on today's session, so if you could keep your cameras and mics off, that would be really beneficial to everyone on the call. So if you'd like to just move across the next slide, please, Emma. Just wanted to quickly intro everyone on the call, so you know who's presenting today's content. So we do have the lovely Emma Linton at Quantic, who is the Customer Engagement and Power Automate Consulting Manager at Quantic. Emma has years worth of experience working closely with both D365 applications, but also more recently Power Platform and Power Automate. So she is well suited to present the key content on Power Automate today. And obviously myself, Sam Flanagan, I spent a number of years as an account manager at Dynamics practice, now moved over to Bytes as a business applications specialist, where I'm aligned to all Power Platform and Dynamics engagements. So let's have a look at today's agenda. So here's the content that you can expect to be delivered on today's session. So Emma's going to start with a high-level overview of Power Automate, so provide some positioning in terms of the wider platform and also Dataverse, or Common Data Service for those of you still using. Yep.
I think this is the wrong agenda. Sorry. It's talking about Citizen Portal. Apologies. I think some of this is the agenda from this morning's session.
Okay. Well, how do you want to do this then? Would you want? I've got the agenda I can share.
Go on, you read out the agenda.
I'll read out the agenda. Right. So what it is going to be is going to start with an overview of Power Automate. We're then going to look at an overview of Power Automate in terms of the wider platform, also Dataverse, or Common Data Service for those of you still using old terminology. We're going to also touch upon why Power Automate is so powerful. What are some of the key benefits that are driving customers towards Power Automate? We're going to review some of the key principles behind Power Automate. Look at the various connectors that are available to connect you to your favorite Microsoft and third-party applications. And we're going to look at key terms such as triggers, which are the starting point for flows, and also the actions, which are then the tasks that you want the flow to complete, and explore which type of actions are actually available. We're then going to look at a quick demo to help you hopefully visualize this further, and also explore real life examples to help you contextualize Power Automate for your organization and begin envisioning what Automate could do for your organization. We also have some real life examples, so a HR return to work example, and also a DocuSign contract management example, which we are very much is a real life example that we are involved with. In fact, Emma is involved with, so she can talk well to that. And we'll just conclude by positioning our services and how we can support you on this journey, as well as answer some questions which I hope and expect will be posted in the chat window throughout the session. We'll have a good portion of time at the end to answer those, and rest assured, any we don't get around to, we will take offline. So absolutely get posting those in the chat, and yeah, we'll take those in a Q&A session at the end. So we'll hand over now to Emma. This is where I hope this section is the right slides, Emma, not from this morning session. If not, I will share mine.
Yeah, apologies. No, this is we have the next stuff. The next stuff's correct. It was just that one slide. So apologies, everybody who was watching, but we can now hopefully get into Power Automate. So starting with a bit of an overview. This is just to give you an idea of where Power Automate is positioned in terms of the Power Platform. And I'm aware that some people on the call might not have come across Power Platform itself before. So I wanted to explain that a little bit and make sure that people know, what it is. So as we can see, Power Automate is part of this thing called the Power Platform, which includes Power BI, which is your reporting, business analytics. It takes data from various sources and can produce charts and reports and dashboards. We've got Power Apps, which is where we're developing applications and using, again, data from different sources. We've got Power Virtual Agents, which is intelligent virtual agents or chatbots that you can put onto your portals or attach into your Dynamics 365 applications. We're looking at Power Automate today, which allows you to automate processes. And I know that when I say automate processes, that sounds like quite a sweeping statement. It doesn't really give you a lot of detail, but I'm hoping throughout this afternoon, I can show you some examples and I can explain what do we mean by automate and what kind of things can be automated and why. All of these tools sit on top of the Microsoft Dataverse, data connectors, and the AI builder. So Dataverse is like it used to be called the Common Data Service and the Common Data Model that Microsoft's developed. The Power Platform doesn't just talk to Dataverse, though. It talks to other data sources using these data connectors. So it means that we can use these tools with Excel or Outlook or things like SQL Server. There's about 370 different connectors now that we can use to attach to different applications and different data sources, not just Microsoft ones. So it makes it really, really powerful. And then AI Builder, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because it's not purely a Power Automate, but that does things like object recognition, sentiment analysis of data in an email, for instance. Scanning business cards and automatically creating records from them. You can use AI Builder components inside Power Automate, so you can sort of hook all of these things together and make them work together and talk to each other. So that's a bit of an overview of the Power Platform. If we look next at, so why would you use Power Automate? Well, first of all, we're trying to automate repetitive tasks. So if there's something that your employees are doing a lot, if they're constantly having to manually write lists or fill in Excel spreadsheets, or even if you've got people filling in forms on a piece of paper, you can use Power Automate to help to automate all of this, to get the data into your systems in a more efficient way. And that then leads to better and more improved data quality. If you've got people being forced to enter data in a certain way, it instantly increases the quality of the data that's going in. It's scalable, and by that I mean that it could be very, very small. It could literally just be automating one tiny bit of a process, or like one of the examples I'm going to show you later, it could be something that actually touches 3 or 4 different systems and is huge, and is actually affecting the work of maybe 100 people or more. So it's really almost how long is a piece of string, Power Automate? What is it that we're trying to automate? And pretty much anything is possible. I've already talked about the different apps. We can connect and automate tasks across different apps. We can use Power Automate to automate approvals. So if you've got a process at the moment where people are having to email their manager to get approval for something, we can do that with Power Automate and automatically send the emails, automatically get a response, and automatically update your database based on the response. And the last thing is that it's accessible anywhere. So you can use it on a mobile app as well as a desktop. It's not something that you only have to use in a back office. It can be used out and about on the ground. You can build Power Automate on a mobile phone if you really wanted to. So it's really easy to access. So there are a number of different types of Power Automate. For most of this webinar today and for the demo, we're going to concentrate on cloud flows. Cloud flows allow you to trigger automations automatically or on a schedule, and they're triggered by something that happens. So they're either triggered by an event in a database. It could be triggered, for instance, when an email arrives in Outlook, or when a record is created in a database, or when I don't know, an item is added to a list in SharePoint. So all of those things would be automated flows. It could be triggered by you. So it could be something that when the user presses a button, that triggers the flow. And that's what we call an instant cloud flow. Or you might want scheduled flows. So you might want something that runs every day or every evening or every week or every month. So imagine things like archiving data, for instance, or looking at the records that are older than 6 months and deleting them on a monthly basis. All of those kinds of things can be automated with Power Automate. We've then got desktop flows. Desktop flows have recently just had a bit of an update from Microsoft, but they're used to automate tasks on the web or on your desktop. And what I mean by that, if anyone's ever used Excel and created macros in Excel, it's very similar. It basically allows you to record your actions on a screen and then repeat that for you and automate it. It's really, really good where perhaps you want to take data from a legacy system and enter it into a brand new cloud system. If you didn't want to connect those two things together and spend lots of money on integration, you could actually record yourself going into the legacy system, highlighting the data in the field there, copying and pasting into the field in the other system, and repeat. So you can sort of record the things that you're doing and repeat it. That is a desktop app, so it actually will run on a home version of Windows 10. It doesn't need to be like a business version of Windows. And yeah, there's a whole range of different things that you can do with those. Yeah, it's really good for people who also don't have access to Dataverse, who aren't using Dynamics or premium connectors, that kind of thing. And then finally, your business process flows. Anyone who has used a Dynamics 365 app like sales or customer service, that they'll know what a business process flow is. But we can now embed these into different model-driven apps. So they can only be used with the Dataverse. You have to have a Dataverse database there to be able to create a business process flow, and they're embedded within model-driven apps. But you can now use them as standalone. So people are now creating business process flows for data entry purposes. It's very, very short. It guides people through a process, gives them a set order in which to do things. And again, it's really useful for data quality, cleansing data and making sure that people are doing the same thing in the same way every time. Really good for repetitive work. So that's our types of Power Automate. So how do we create a flow? There's a couple of different ways. Obviously, you can start from absolute scratch and create a flow from a blank page, but there are a huge number of templates available that have been created by Microsoft, but also by the Microsoft community. There's a really big community out there that are constantly building these templates and building really cool flows and then just share them for free. So you can see on the page, we've got examples here like saving email attachments from Outlook into Dropbox. We've got, sending an email if there's been a new tweet with a certain keyword. As long as you have access to the systems that the flows are linking to, you can just pick up this flow and literally run it as and when. The other great thing about these are that they're really handy if you're just starting out and you started to create flows and you're not quite sure how something would be done. The fact that you can see this template, it will show you exactly how it's built. You can look at all the formulas inside, so you can see everything that it's doing. So they're a really good starting point for building your own flows, or even taking one of these and changing it and adding, making it yours. So yeah, always have a look at the templates. There's lots of really, really good stuff in here. And then you could even submit your own templates afterwards. Once you become your flow expert, you can then add things in yourself as well. So what are the key components of flows? So again, we're going to concentrate on Cloudflow. The reason that I've decided to fixate on Cloudflows today is because this is normally where most people start. When we talk about Power Automate, we usually are talking about Cloudflows, and most people are introduced to Power Automate in this way. So I thought we'd spend some time here rather than trying to fit too much into the time. So the first thing to talk about, we mentioned on the very first slide, data connectors. This is really key because this is how Power Automate connects to other apps and other data and devices in the cloud. I've said there that there are over 300 connectors. I think last week it said there were 370, but that was 100 more than the month before. So this number is growing. People are constantly creating new connectors to different applications. There's a lovely big long list on the Microsoft Docs website where you can see every single connector and see how they work and what you need to use them. If a connector doesn't already exist for a system that you're using, you can build your own custom connectors, and you can, if that system has an API that you're able to have access to, that's how you do that. You create a custom connector that links to the API. And then you can just use it in your flows or in your other Power Apps in exactly the same way as a normal connector. So yeah, connectors are really key. That's what you need really to do any of this work. The next component is trigger. So when you're starting to create your flow, you need to think about what is it that's causing this flow to run? What's triggering this flow? And depending on the type of flow and what your scenario is, what you want to happen, like we said earlier, a trigger might be when a record's updated or when the user presses a button in an app. You can see there's sort of an example here. There's when a file is created in OneDrive, when someone assigns a task to me in Planner. So these are all the different triggers that you can use to start your flow off. And then once you've got your trigger, you add actions. So the actions are the steps that you want your flow to run through. And it sort of starts at the top of the page, and it literally says, do this, then do this, then do this. And you add in the actions that you want to happen. Each connection that you use will have a different range of available actions. So you can imagine in Excel, you might want to get a row, excuse me, or get a table. Whereas in SharePoint, you might be getting attachments or creating a folder. So the actions that you have available to you are dependent on the connection that you're using, the app that you're connecting to. You can use the information that you've retrieved in the trigger or in previous actions. So I can use an action to get some data from a record, and then my next action might be send an email to someone containing that data inside the email. So you end up with all this data within the flow that you can then use, and you can do calculations on that data. You can write reports with it. You can populate Word documents. And then the last thing that I've mentioned here in the bullet point is You can use almost programmatical functions in here, so we can use if statements and have branches. You know, if it's true, do these actions, but if it's false, do these instead. It's entirely up to you when you're building your flow, but it allows you to direct the flow according to the data that you've got coming to you. So I'm going to move into a demo, and I'm just going to open up. So let me bring this over here. So what I wanted to show you here was I have created a form, a Microsoft form, that we're going to pretend that we're using this for like an activities club inside your workplace. Now this form is going to be out there, we're going to share the link with everybody, but I want to be notified when somebody makes a response to this form, and I want to be told that that's happening instead of having to come back and check the form all the time to see how many responses I've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a Power Automate flow that says when somebody responds to this form, I want to be sent an email to tell me that's happened, but I also want a little message to happen in Teams to tell me that somebody's responded. Just two different ways of telling me, of notifying me that we've had a response. So in my Power Apps area here, I'm in my flows area, and I'm going to click on New Flow. And I want it to be an automated cloud flow because I want to trigger it from an event that's happening. I can add a name, so I'm going to say this is my activities form response. And the very first thing in the top of the list there is when a new response is submitted. But you could see in here, if I was looking for something completely different, I can sort of type in the name of an app, and it will give me all the different triggers that I could use instead. So it's really easy to find the triggers that you're looking for. I'm going to choose that one there and say create. So this is my trigger. It's added it in for me. And this is my workspace now. This is where I'm going to build my flow. If I just click into here actually and show you, this is my connection. So this is the login that I'm using to connect to Microsoft Forms for this trigger. That will make sense later on when we're using Outlook and other things to send information. So the first thing I want to do is say, well, which form is it that I'm interested in? Because my form is there already, any minute now, it should load. There we are. So I'm going to choose my activities club form. That was the one that we were looking at. And now I'm going to say new step. So what I want to do with my first step, I want to gather all the information that I got from the response. If I look at this form, we're asking questions here. Which team do you belong to? What kind of activities are you interested in? Have you ever been on an event before, and a rating? So I want to gather all of that inside my flow so that I can use it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for forms actions, and the only one that's there is get the response details. So I choose to get response details. Again, it's going to say which form, and I know that sounds strange, but you might want to get details from multiple different forms, so it's just double checking which one it is that you want. And then this is saying what's the ID of the actual response, and the ID of the actual response is the one that triggered this Power Automate. When I click in here, it's going to show me all the dynamic content. You can see at the moment, the only thing that we're getting is this response ID. That's what's being provided to us via the trigger. So I'm going to choose that. So that's my first action. I'm getting the details of the response. And now I'm going to say, right, once I've got my response details, let's send an email. Let's actually send an email to say, this response has come in. I am going to use the Outlook email here. You can see there's a number of different options depending on the systems that you've got in place. but I'm going to use Outlook. And again, if I just show you here, it's still showing me what connection am I using. So if I wanted to log into Outlook as a different person, I can do. I can add a new connection there with a different login and password, and it will use that instead. So here, I'm going to send it to me. There. The subject of my email, response. And now inside the body of my email, I can now use information from the steps above. So now on this right-hand side, I'm not just seeing the response ID, I'm seeing here's all the details that have come to me from that form. So I'm going to just quickly add something in here. I'm going to say, let's put the responder's email in there. They have responded to the form. I'm just going to put some information in about which team they belong to, and let's see what interests, what activities they're interested in. And you could write a whole email here. You've got options to change the font, make things bold. So you've got a fair bit of control over how this looks. This is all part of the Outlook connector. So once I've done that, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to just make sure we belt and braces here, is that I want to also post a message in Teams. So if I have a look at my Teams actions, I'll look at the things that are available to me. The one I'm looking for, and you can see there's a whole range of options here, is that one. I want to post a message as the Flowbot to a user, and that user is going to be me. So I'm going to choose that. Okay, there we are. Didn't think that was working then. Just double checking. So again, I want me to be the recipient of the message. Again, in here, I'm going to say somebody has responded to this form, and in the headline, I'm going to say, actually, headline, I'm just going to make this the same. You've had a response. Same in the summary, so that we can see this when it comes up. And if I wanted this to be an actual alert in Teams, I can do that as well. So you've got some options in the Teams connectors that way. So you can see there's only 4 steps in this flow. It's a really, really simple flow. I'm going to save it. If there were any errors in here, there's a flow checker. So if I'd made any mistakes with the things that I've chosen or the things that I've typed, it'll give me a little red dot in here and tell me that there's an issue with the flow. And I can also test the flow from inside the flow if I like. You'll be able to see in a minute when this runs, we can actually see each step as it happens, and we can see the data inside the flow. So if your flow does fail when it's in the middle of running, you've got a chance to actually see the data that's there and work out, is this something wrong with your flow, or is it that you're getting unexpected data and that's causing a problem? That's really, really useful from a developer's point of view. So now, if I go back to the main page, I'm just going to go into the front page for this flow. Can you see here we've got a run history? So every time the flow runs, we get a line here that tells us whether it's worked or not. And we can see that the flow is on, and who owns it, who created it, when it was modified. And then here are the 3 different connections that we're using. So again, when you're going into someone else's flow, you get to see who's used this, what connections are they using, whose connection is it. A lot of my clients will set up like a service user, and they'll have their service user be the owner of the flows, so that if Emma Linton leaves, it doesn't matter, you know, we're not losing access to anything. But you can see all this information on this screen. So if I go into my form now, and I'm going to preview it just so that I can create a response and hopefully trigger this flow. So I'm going to pretend that I'm part of marketing. I'm going to say that I would like us to do some go-karting. So I feel you spell that with a K, so I'm going to put go-karting in there. I'm going to say I have been on a work event before, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 and submit. So that's submitted that response to the form. What we should see here is here's the actual run of the flow. And if I click on that run, it'll show me the steps of the flow, and it'll show me what happened when the flow was running. So we can sort of open these up. Yeah, so there's the unique ID of that form. We can see in here for the response details, here's all the things that I typed in and my email address and the time that it was submitted. And it even gives it to you as JSON as well in the body. And then the send an email, this is what it's sent. And the message in Teams. If I let's drag that away, and I'm actually going to show you in Teams and show you the email that it's created. So in here, so this is my Teams. You can see I've been practicing a little bit beforehand, but this is the new flow that's just come in, the new flow response, and it says, you know, you had, here we are. So Emma Linton responded, please contact to confirm you've had a response. So that happened really, really quickly. The flow ran and sent it straight away. And you can see it's telling us that Power Automate sent that. As well as that, let's move that in the Outlook. If I bring this into here, you can see this is the email that we sent as a response from the form as well. So hopefully that gives you a picture of how the flow runs and how simple they can be. Obviously, that's a very, very simple Power Automate flow. But once you've got all your connections, you know what you're doing, it can be very straightforward to get started. I wanted to give you some real life examples of the different kinds of flows that you can build. And I've got 2 examples to show you. One's quite a small, simple one, sort of similar to what I've just shown you. Another one is actually one that we're in the middle of building. We've nearly got this finished. It's a real life flow for a client, for a project that I'm on. So the first example is an HR return to work flow. The current process that the customer had was that they had an on-premises HR system. I think it was a SQL Server on-prem system. When people were going off sick and then returning to work, they were having issues with employees not completing return to work forms and not providing self-certification forms when they were supposed to. The current process had been that the HR team would look at the system, work out who'd come back from sick leave. They would then write the names of those users down, go and look in their HR system to see who that person's manager was, and then manually send emails to each manager with all the names of the employees in. And then they'd wait for a response from the manager saying, yes, I've spoken to them, here's the self-cert, all of those things. And then they'd manually update the HR system to say, we've sent the email, this is if we've had a response or not, you know, this is the attachment that we were sent. Everything was very, very manual. So what we put in place instead was, we said, well, when the data in the HR system is updated, so when somebody puts an end date in for their sick leave period, that's going to trigger this Power Automate flow. The Power Automate then said, well, find me the employee's email address, find me the manager of that employee and their email address. Now send emails to those people and automatically update the HR system with notes to say that that email had been sent and who to and when and all of those things. So very, very simple, but probably saved that HR staff member maybe an hour a week. Doesn't sound like a lot, but hopefully it gives you an idea of these very small things where we can save time and just gain efficiencies across the board. So that was the simple version. This next one is a little bit more complicated. So this is a system, it's for a large care home provider. When they're ready to ask their new residents to sign on the dotted line, they're currently manually populating a Word template. So they've got all their information in their CRM system about the customer, their address, their care assessments, all of their needs. They manually put that into a Word document. They then create a new envelope in DocuSign, add the Word document into the envelope, and send it to the customer. The customer then signs the contract, hopefully, via DocuSign. The user goes into DocuSign, uploads the now signed document into SharePoint, and then manually goes back into CRM to update the contract status. So they're using DocuSign, they've got some automation in there already, but the bits that are linking to the systems and the uploading to SharePoint is all being done very manually. So we've replaced this with two separate flows. So the first flow says, when the CRM record's been updated, first of all, it goes away and requests approval from the manager of that particular care home and just says, can you check the data in CRM? Is everything correct? Are all the fees the right fees, etc.? And once they give approval via Power Automate Flow, it then auto-populates a Word template. So it creates almost like a mail merge. It grabs the template for Word, adds in all the data from the database. It then automatically creates a DocuSign envelope, adds the document, and sends the DocuSign envelope to the customer. And it's getting the customer's email address from CRM. It's got everything that it needs from this database. So the DocuSign envelope goes, the customer then signs the contract. When the customer signs the contract in DocuSign, the status of the envelope is updated. So the second flow is waiting for that status change in DocuSign. When the DocuSign envelope's completed, it emails the user to tell them that that's happened. It extracts the signed contract, uploads it to SharePoint, updates the status of the contract in CRM, and sort of updates and finishes off that process. So we've gone from a very manual, long-winded process by a user. All they're having to do now is update the system at the end. A manager is approving, and then it's being updated back in the system once that process is finished. So hopefully you can see that's a slightly larger process using multiple different connectors, but it's saving this particular team an awful lot of time just day to day in what they were doing for their work. So that's the end of my demo and my sort of examples of what can be done. Sam, if I hand back to you, just to talk a little bit now about the Envisioning Workshop.
Absolutely, and thanks very much, Emma. Some really great stuff there. We like the examples at the end. I think that helps bring it to life really well in terms of the capabilities of the platform. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, express at the end of the, as we're sort of, well, we've still got a bit of time, but just after Emma's section there, just to clarify that there are a multitude of ways that both Bytes and Quantic can support around the Power Platform. And one of those is via the Envisioning Workshop. Now, what we would do here really is work with you to take a holistic view of your business and through a series of interviews, really get to grips with how your organization operates, identify your biggest challenges and what they are, and what are the kind of key priority areas for improvement. We then engage with the key business stakeholders in your organization, explore the enterprise technology vision, as well as topics to identify the key areas for improvement. And from there, use it as a platform to build out the key initiatives. We will then, once we got to that stage, we look at how we can leverage Microsoft technologies, specifically Microsoft Dynamics 365, and also Power Platform to drive a high quality enterprise transformation to benefit your customers, your employees, operations, and other key stakeholder groups across your organization. And then we produce a findings summary along with a proposed roadmap with priority actions to help you move forward with the various technologies. So it's a really great fit for organizations and leadership teams that require a clear, agile and affordable IT modernization plan that connects, your technology, your organizational drivers, and importantly, your stakeholders. And I'm just going to mention as well, there is obviously a poll up on the screens. If you think this is of interest, it could be of interest, then let us know. So whether it's yes, no, or perhaps at a later stage, then do indicate that by answering the poll on your screen. It's typically a 5 to 10 day engagement around that mark. It's worth pointing out they are all completely customized experience, completely tailored to your own individual organizational needs. So there is, of course, a range in terms of scope there. Just to outline as well that this is just one out of the box offering that we've mentioned on the slide. This is, of course, a really good area we can support, but if you have a specific requirement around a Power Automate project that you've identified, and perhaps you've got to a certain point or you're about to embark on that journey, but you're really looking for some assistance in creating optimal custom workflows and are looking for some kind of best practice guidance or whatever it might be, however bespoke that requirement is, if you're looking for support from the guys that live and breathe this technology on a day-to-day basis, then do of course get in touch via help me at Bytes, and we will be able to support you. So it's and there's examples of that are towards the end of that slide, whether it's the HR return to workflow, HR return to work workflow, there's the contract, the DocuSign piece. These are just sort of a couple of examples that we've very much embedded with, and Emma herself is involved with. So yeah, absolutely do get in touch when we can support you. But from a core content perspective, that was it for today's session. But we do have, happily, we do have some time for some questions to put Emma on the spot. And so we're going to start looking at those now. So let's start with, can Power Automate connect to Facebook, Trello, as well as Twitter, Emma?
Okay, so yes to Trello. Trello is a standard connector, so it can trigger flows when you add cards to lists and boards and that kind of thing. There isn't a connector for Facebook, although I have seen people who've created custom connectors to Facebook. So I think that there are people out there on GitHub creating custom connectors that you'd be able to use, but there's not like a standard one that Microsoft has partnered with yet. So watch this space. There are people out there doing that.
Watch this space, indeed. Are there, in terms of the user community that you reference, are there any security risks associated with that? I mean, my understanding is Microsoft still sort of govern that and don't just let anything through the anything pass. So I think there is still an element of governance there, so there is to handle that security side, right?
Yeah, I mean, there is, in terms of, they do a little bit of governance around, obviously they want those templates to work, right? So you can't just put a template in that doesn't do what it says on the box. In terms of security, there shouldn't be. I mean, if you think that, again, as soon as I pick up one of those templates, it's going to try and use my login and my connections. So you're never going to see data that you shouldn't be able to see. The way that Power Automate, and actually the rest of Power Platform, the way that it works is it's using your existing security It's using Azure AD, and it's using your logins to the systems that you've already got. So it's not giving you anything extra in terms of security or access rights. It's basically connecting together all the things you can already access. Does that make sense?
It does. Let's have a look. Can desktop flows be used in a data migration from one system to another?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that actually cloud flows as well. We've used cloud flows to do data migrations and data transformation inside the flow. But yeah, definitely, if you've got a really old legacy system, maybe it's, you know, ancient and it's not easy to connect to, then desktop flow is your way forward. They used to use, last year what they were doing was using things like a Windows Recorder and Selenium to do those recordings. Now they've actually got a proper desktop app that you can download and have on your computer. And that allows you to do so much more. So yeah, you can connect to web pages, you can do all sorts of things. Yeah, data transformation, data migration, that's one of the big uses, I would say, for desktop flows.
And in terms of desktop flows, are you able to articulate the differences between desktop flows and business process flows, business flows?
Yeah, so a business process flow you can only use in Dataverse, and it has to be part of a model-driven app. And apologies for the people who haven't come across model-driven apps, but it's something that Microsoft has developed, that and the Dataverse. So it's quite restricted in terms of where you can use it. If you don't already have Dataverse, you can't do business process flows. The way that I see a business process flow is that it's almost like a timeline with stages on it. They're really good for training new staff, for instance. So one of the standard ones out the box from Microsoft is your lead opportunity quote order process. You might have stages for qualifying the lead, a stage for getting the opportunity information, a stage for approving the quote, etc. So it's more like a leading people through a process, making sure that they've entered the data at the right time. And it's sort of like a step-by-step leading people through something that they have to do a lot. You know, it might be a long process and you're worried that people are going to miss a step. So that's business process flows. A desktop flow is I'm going to record what you do on the screen and I'm going to repeat that. So I might have an Excel spreadsheet with a set of emails and I'm going to read the first one and do something with it, and then read the next one and do something with it. And it's going to record what you do and what you click on and then repeat that process. So it's sort of things that are very manual and long-winded. It takes that recording and then just does it for you. Makes things much faster. It's fairly new and it's quite exciting, but yeah, we're trying to do something at the moment for our timesheets. So we were saying, you know, how do you look in Outlook, work out what meetings you had, create entries in our timesheet system. They're not easy to connect to with connectors. Can we do it with desktop? Can we actually get it to record what we have to do in real life and repeat that for us?
Great stuff. Thanks, Emma. I think we've clarified on the call, or hopefully we have, that you can connect to on-premise data sources such as SQL Server. Can you perhaps just talk a bit to how you might go about doing that?
Yeah, so SQL Server is the key one that we talk about because there's a premium connector for that. So you can already get a connector from Microsoft that will allow you to connect to SQL Server. To be able to do that, you also need admin permissions to a data gateway. So when you're going from something that's cloud-based to get data from the on-premises source, you need a data gateway to access that data. So as long as you've got admin access to a data gateway and you've got a connector for it, it'll do it. Like I said, SQL Server's one of the main ones that I come across in my day-to-day life. And there are already connectors for that, but like I was saying earlier, we can always create custom connectors if there isn't one that exists already. But the data gateway is the difference. If it was already a cloud-based system, you wouldn't need that data gateway as well.
Okay, great stuff. In terms of AI Builder, that feature, that capability within Power Automate, are there any prerequisites or things that customers should know around that before we get started?
Yeah, so prerequisites for AI Builder. I mean, I'll go right back to the very start, really basic. Obviously, you need a license for Power Automate, so you need access to Power Automate. But then you do need to enable AI Builder in your environment. I think at the moment, and Sam, I might ask you to confirm this later, but I think that AI Builder is licensed as part of a Power Apps or a Power Automate license. So I think you get it. You also get like a bit of a license for it. If you've got like Dynamics 365, something like that, you'll have an AI license. So you should be able to add a trial using that. But then once you're ready to actually use it in anger, so I know we've built things recently as object detection, you know, like we've got a customer who wanted to, they're a bookseller, and they wanted to take photographs of the books and have it detect the book and read the text and that kind of thing. They have like a capacity license that charges you per use. So it's like, how many times are you going to use this builder and what's the volume? And there are different sort of capacities for that. You do have to have Dataverse for AI Builder to work, because that's where it stores all of its data in the background. Yeah, I mean, there's an actual calculator online.
I was going to say,
thinking, if you like.
There's a pricing tool where you basically go through exactly what part of AI Builder you want to use and how many sort of units you're going to be processing, etc. And that can give you, I don't think a firm cost, but an estimate in terms of how much that's going to cost you on a monthly basis.
Oops, I've just sent it to one person. I'm going to do that again to everybody.
Who's the lucky,
do it
who's
that
the lucky
way.
person that's got it?
Jasveer Sandhu. Well done. You got it first. But yeah, that's the calculator that you can use that will tell you capacities and things.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, it's there to use pretty much. If you've got Dataverse and you're already using Power Automate, it'll be there, and you can set up trials very easily for things like sentiment analysis. Really handy. Like I said, we do it with our feedback forms, and we sort of say, you know, how did the course go? We're able to see, were they happy, sad, angry, whatever. We can use AI Builder for that kind of thing as well. So yeah, there's some exciting stuff in there.
So there's a bit of a question here around best practice. If you can,
I can try.
You can try. Would you advise using a shared account to run flows if they are business critical, rather than from individual accounts? So, for example, if they've left the business, or
I wouldn't say a shared account, because that implies that lots of people are logging in as that account at the same time, and the inner developer in me goes no to that. But we do have a lot of clients that will set up like a service user. So, you know, you can set up like non-licensed users, can't you, that have the access they need, but they can't physically log into the system. So most of our flows tend to be owned by a service user, so that, like you said, if somebody leaves, you're not losing access to all those flows. One of the other things to mention, and it's slightly outside of the Power Automate conversation, but Microsoft provides something called Center of Excellence. And that does allow you to see all the flows in your environment and who owns them. So it will allow an admin person to actually see all the flows and assign them a different owner. So if somebody left and all of a sudden all your flows have disappeared, that can be fixed using the Center of Excellence stuff. That's a free solution that Microsoft provides that you can have and set up.
Cool, great stuff. Thanks, Emma. I think we're just going to do one more to save your voice.
Okay.
Thanks, you've done a lot of talking. Could someone in theory create a survey from and save the data into a SQL database rather than Dataverse? Or
in theory, yes. I mean, I'll admit now, I've never actually created a form using Power Automate, but if the actions are there, why not? Yeah. You can do all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, you can link it up to things like customer voice, for instance, instead of a form, taking data from a database, creating a customer voice survey, getting, you know, and then you'd have another flow that probably got the response from that and then dealt with the data coming back in.
Yep, no, that's what I think the question was in theory, so that answers that one.
Yeah.
We'll just do, sorry, one last quick one, and then this is it. Can Power Automate do object cloning from Java-based software? Is that, it's a bit of a...
That's, yeah, I might have to take that one away, because
cool.
I'll admit I'm not a Java expert, but I will take that away and double check for you and get back to whoever that was. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, we'll take that one offline and get a response. But yeah, I think in terms of today's session, thanks again to everyone for taking the time to join. For those of you that have requested more information or to move ahead with a workshop offering, I'm sure we'll be in touch very, very shortly. For those that haven't, I hope it was still a informative session and a good use of your time. But yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Emma. Great content, and take care everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your weeks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone. Take care.